It was a cold night when everything changed in an instant. I remember running through the deserted city streets, holding my 6-month-old son, Lucas, close to my chest. My heart was on the verge of breaking. The city felt eerily quiet. The dim streetlights cast long shadows that mirrored the despair inside me. My husband Michael was far away on a mission that would take months, and I was left alone in the middle of this nightmare. Suddenly, Lucas began having violent seizures. The panic that overwhelmed me in that moment was indescribable. There was no car, no one around to help. In the darkness and isolation, I pushed myself forward with a single goal: getting to the hospital. Each step felt heavier, each breath more painful. I ran, praying with everything I had that we would make it in time. When we finally reached the hospital, the chaos of the emergency room flooded my senses. Doctors and nurses were doing everything they could, but Lucas's condition was getting worse. His small body was cooling down, his skin was turning pale, and his eyes weren't responding. Hours of desperate attempts went by, and it felt like time had stopped. Finally, the doctors, exhausted and defeated, declared Lucas clinically dead. They told me to call my family, to prepare myself for the inevitable loss. With trembling hands, filled with fear and grief, I took out my phone. I tried to dial the numbers, but tears blurred my vision. Just as I was about to make the call, I noticed a slight movement in Lucas's tiny finger. "This can't be real," one of the nurses whispered. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. The doctors rushed in, and Lucas's heartbeat began to strengthen. His breathing returned to normal. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at me. There was a depth in his gaze that didn't belong to a child.
Mom, don't be afraid. I'm okay, but I shouldn't be here,
he whispered, as if he knew something beyond this world. Before I could respond, a strange energy filled the room. Lucas's eyes suddenly lit up with a bright glow, and all the electronics in the room malfunctioned, sparking and shutting off. At that moment, 2 strangers in black suits entered the room. Their faces showed no emotion.
"Maria Johnson,"
one of them called out, his voice flat and cold. My heart pounded wildly as I nodded in fear.
"We need to take your son. He can't stay here,"
the man said. "No," I screamed, tears streaming down my face. "You can't take my son." Lucas squeezed my hand tighter.
Mom, I have to go, but I will never forget you,
he said. And just like that, both Lucas and the strangers vanished. All that remained was an empty bed and an unbearable pain in my chest. The hospital staff couldn't believe what had happened. When they checked the security cameras, they saw no one else in the room. They all thought it was just a hallucination brought on by extreme stress. Years passed, but the loss of Lucas left a deep void in me. Life felt meaningless without him, and the memory of that night haunted me every day. One day, I found an anonymous letter in my mailbox. It contained just one sentence.
Your love changed me forever.
That brief and mysterious message rekindled a spark of hope inside me. Maybe Lucas was still out there somewhere, safe. Clinging to that hope, I decided to write down my story and ended up publishing a book called The Secret of Infinity. The book gained unexpected worldwide attention. Thousands of people began questioning the mysteries and miracles in their own lives. At a conference, I met Dr. Adrian Blackwood, an expert in parallel universes and consciousness studies. Dr. Blackwood believed my story was a rare example that supported his theories, and he offered to help me uncover the truth. Together, Dr. Blackwood and I began to dive into the depths of the phenomenon that had taken Lucas from me. We discovered that Lucas's spirit was trying to return from another dimension, something Dr. Blackwood called a consciousness transition. It was a theory suggesting that under certain conditions, a person's soul could cross over to another dimension. As our research progressed, we realized Lucas wasn't just passing through. He was actively trying to come back. To help Lucas return, we developed a ritual that required me to confront my deepest fears and unresolved traumas. During the ritual, I found myself in an endless void, a place where time and space seemed fluid and constantly shifting. Lucas reached out his hand to me and asked,
Mom, are you ready?
Gathering all my courage and love, I accepted. When Lucas returned to the physical world, tears of joy streamed down my face. But this reunion came at a cost. The balance of the universe had shifted, and our lives were no longer the same. Now, Michael, Lucas, and I are trying to live a normal life, but things are different. Lucas's return changed all of us. He is no longer the same child. He carries a depth and understanding that I can't fully explain. Together, we face the challenges of what happened, dealing with the lingering effects every day. But more than anything, we have found strength in being together again. Lucas's return reminded us how fragile, yet resilient, life can be. Even in the darkest times, I know there's always a glimmer of hope. Life has restarted for us, not like it was before, but still together. We face each new day holding each other a little tighter, protecting the love and family we have. Love is the bond that has carried us through every challenge. Maybe we disrupted some cosmic balance when Lucas came back, but in our little world, we found our own balance again. And that, for us, is the greatest miracle of all.